France had more tanks than Germany, more artillery than Germany, and they lost in 6 weeks because one general read a report, put it down, and decided not to worry about it. It's May 1940. A French general named Alphonse Georges is sitting in his headquarters in northeastern France, reading an intelligence report. The report says German tanks are coming through the Ardennes forest. The Ardennes is a dense, hilly stretch of woodland on the French-Belgian border. Military experts have been saying for years that it's completely impassable for a large armored force. Georges reads the report. He reads it again. Then he puts it down, looks out the window at the trees, and decides the experts were probably right. He does not send reinforcements. The German tanks keep coming. Within 6 weeks, France, the country with the largest army in Europe, more tanks than Germany, more artillery than Germany, surrenders. The speed of the collapse stuns everyone, including the Germans who frankly weren't certain the plan was going to work. I didn't expect it to go that well either. Should we tell someone? Let's just keep going and see what happens. But here's the thing. France didn't have to fall. France had 3,000 tanks. Germany had 2,700. France had more artillery, more men, and the Maginot Line on their eastern border was genuinely impregnable. They just prepared for the wrong invasion. One decision, one general, one morning, one intelligence report, and everything changes. After World War I, which France won, but at the cost of 1.4 million dead soldiers and entire regions reduced to moonscape, the French military made a firm decision: never again. They built the Maginot Line, underground railways, air-conditioned bunkers, gun turrets that rotated 360 degrees. It was an astonishing piece of engineering. The problem is it stopped at Belgium. The French assumption was that Germany would do what they did in 1914, come through Belgium. So France would charge into Belgium, meet them there, and fight the war on someone else's soil. Reasonable plan. Except a German general named Erich von Manstein had a different idea. Send a feint into Belgium to pull the French north. Then send the real attack, hundreds of tanks, through the Ardennes in the south, which everyone agreed was impassable, everyone except Manstein. When he presented this to his superiors, they called it insane. You want to move an armored army through 70 miles of dense forest? Yes. On roads that can barely fit 2 cars? Yes. And you think the French won't notice? I think they'll notice too late. His superiors sent him away. Then Hitler heard the plan. Hitler loved it, which, to be fair, was not necessarily a good sign. May 13th, 1940, the German feint into Belgium is working perfectly. The French army has charged north exactly as predicted. Meanwhile, in the Ardennes, the actual attack's threading through the forest. Slow, cramped, traffic jams stretching back for miles. One moderate French airstrike and the whole plan collapses. General Georges receives the intelligence report. German armored columns, moving through the Ardennes, heading for the Meuse River. In real history, Georges, reportedly in a state of nervous exhaustion bordering on breakdown, looks at this report, doesn't fully process what it means, and fails to react. In our story, Georges has a slightly better morning. Maybe he slept well. Maybe one of his staff officers grabs his arm and says, "Sir, look at this. Look at how many tanks that is." Georges looks. "That's the main attack," he says. "Sir, the Belgium thing is a feint. This is the main attack." He turns to his staff. "Get me the 1st Armored Division, get me the 3rd Armored Division, get me the Air Force on the phone." His aide is already reaching for the telephone. "Also," says Georges, "tell General Gamelin to wake up." "He's already awake, sir." "Then tell him to do something." The French armored divisions turn south. The Luftwaffe runs into a French Air Force that is very much present. The German columns, bottlenecked in the Ardennes with no room to maneuver, start taking artillery fire they can't see. Manstein's plan, which depended entirely on speed and surprise, stops being speedy. Then it stops working altogether. Here's a fact that gets lost in the story of France's defeat. On May 21st, 1940, in real history, while Germany was already encircling the Allies, a relatively unknown French colonel named Charles de Gaulle led a small armored counterattack near Arras. With fewer than 200 tanks, he hit the German flank so hard that it briefly panicked Rommel into calling for support and reporting a British counterattack of 5 divisions. It was one undersized French one. Now imagine what de Gaulle does when Georges actually gives him resources. De Gaulle, commanding the 4th Armored Division at full strength, receives a simple order: hit them. He does not need to be told twice. "Gentlemen, today we drive into Germany." "Sir, we're not authorized to cross the..." "Gentlemen, today we drive aggressively in the direction of Germany." "Yes, sir." In real history, the French collapse was so fast that Germany never had to solve the hard problem. What do you do if France doesn't collapse? Now, they have to solve it. German tanks in 1940 constantly outran their supply lines. In real history, there were moments when the entire armored spearhead stopped to wait for fuel trucks. The French never exploited this because they were busy falling apart. Now they aren't. German artillery was burning through shells at a rate that assumed a short campaign. Hitler famously issued the halt order on May 24, 1940, stopping his tanks outside Dunkirk for 3 days and letting 330,000 Allied soldiers escape. Nobody fully understands why. In our timeline, it's the German columns encircled in the Ardennes, and Hitler is issuing frantic orders to push through. Mein Führer, we need to pull back. The fuel situation alone, push through. The French have closed the exit routes, push through. We have 3 days of ammunition, push through. Brauchitsch turns to the man next to him and mouths, "This is going to be a problem." Winston Churchill, who became Prime Minister on May 10th, literally the day the offensive began, calls his cabinet together. "Gentlemen, France is holding." The cabinet stares at him. France is holding. "Well," says Churchill, "that changes rather a lot." The British Expeditionary Force, 330,000 men, who in real history escaped at Dunkirk with virtually no equipment, is now a functioning army. Churchill sends RAF fighter squadrons to French airfields. Then he calls Roosevelt. "Franklin, France is holding." "I'm sorry, could you say that again?" "France is holding." "I'll send some destroyers." Germany in 1940 was not ready for a long war. Hitler had planned a series of quick campaigns. Poland in weeks, France in weeks. A quick arrangement with Britain, then east to deal with the Soviets. The whole strategy depended on speed. Albert Speer later wrote that Germany didn't fully convert to a wartime economy until 1942. Their oil reserves were critically low. In our timeline, with France holding and Britain fully committed, Germany faces its nightmare, a sustained war before it's ready. Perhaps we wait and see how this develops. But Duce, you told Hitler? Italy has not sent any letter. What letter? I don't know what letter you're referring to. In real history, Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in June 1941 because France was conquered and Britain was isolated. He could afford to turn east. In our timeline, he cannot. France is fighting, Britain is reinforcing, and Stalin is watching. The Germans are busy. Yes, Comrade Stalin, they are very busy. Extremely busy. Stalin lights his pipe. Good. In real history, the Soviet Union nearly collapsed under the German invasion. 3.8 million soldiers captured in 6 months. Ukraine's industrial regions lost. Moscow itself nearly fell. None of that happens here. Stalin has 18 more months to prepare. He purges fewer generals, which is a low bar to clear but still counts as progress. Moves factories east of the Urals. When the German invasion of the Soviet Union finally comes, delayed until late 1942, it hits a Red Army with a year and a half longer to prepare. This is very bad news for Germany. Japan attacks Pearl Harbor in December 1941. This part doesn't change. Japan's imperial logic in Asia had nothing to do with France. But when Hitler declares war on America, he does so while still fighting France, Britain, and staring at an undefeated Soviet Union. His generals stare at him. Mein Führer, we are fighting France. Yes. And Britain. Yes. And now America. Yes. And in 6 months, the Soviet Union. Correct. I want to be very clear that I personally advised against all of this. With America in the war and France still standing, Allied industrial capacity buries Germany in material. America alone outproduces Germany in tanks by 1943. Combined with British, Soviet, and French production, which in this timeline was never handed to Germany, it isn't a war anymore. It's arithmetic. The liberation of occupied northern France happens in 1943. The war in Europe ends in 1944, a full year early. De Gaulle, who in real history spent years fighting to be taken seriously from London exile, is now a national hero who stopped the German breakthrough. He is, as a result, considerably more difficult to deal with. De Gaulle has demanded operational command of the entire Western Front. What did you say? I said absolutely not. And he's demanding it in writing. Is he always like this? He was like this when I met him in 1940. He had 17 men and a boat. Berlin falls in the summer of 1944. How did this happen? Brauchitsch, from wherever former commanders go after being sacked. I have a folder of memos I'd like you to look at. A war that ends in 1944 instead of 1945 changes things profoundly. The atomic bomb is not used on Japan. The Manhattan Project is running, but the bomb isn't ready until late 1945. With Germany already defeated and Allied resources flooding the Pacific, Japan surrenders in early 1946 without it. The nuclear arms race still happens eventually. You can't uninvent physics, but it starts from a different psychological place. There is no Hiroshima, no demonstration of what the bomb actually does to a city full of people. Whether this makes nuclear weapons more or less frightening to the people building them is genuinely hard to say. The Soviet Union, which in our world lost 27 million people and emerged from the war devastated, comes out of this timeline in significantly better shape, stronger. Which means the Cold War is colder, more cautious, more tense, more stable. The Berlin Wall probably still goes up. Some walls are just inevitable, and France is one of the genuine victors of the war, not a country that fell in 6 weeks and spent 4 years being liberated by other people, but a country that held and fought back and was there at the kill. France demands. Charles, you've said France demands 11 times today. France has 11 demands. You've only listed 4. France is saving the other 7 for tomorrow. All of this, the shorter war, the unborn nuclear age, the colder Cold War, the insufferable but justified French confidence, traces back to one morning in May 1940. General Alphonse Georges spent the first days of the real offensive in near collapse. Sick, overwhelmed. He reportedly broke down in tears in front of his staff. He was, in other words, a person. And one person on one morning made a decision that echoed for decades. General, you should look at this. In real history, Georges looked and froze. In our story, Georges looks and picks up the phone. That's the whole difference. Somewhere, in an alternate bunker, Hitler is staring at a map trying to understand where it all went wrong. It went wrong on a Tuesday morning in a French command post, when one tired general looked at a piece of paper and actually read it. Speaking of a tired general making a world-altering decision, what if China stayed a democracy?